This is the Saugus Board of Appeals meeting. I want people to know the library closes at 8 o'clock. So if you go to leave after that time, please leave out this door and out the side. Okay, do not go through the library. The restrooms out there will be open for use.
One of them will remain open.
At least one is open, okay? This is the Town of Saugus Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, May 14th. It's a continuance of a public hearing on 961 Broadway Development LLC for a comprehensive permit pursuant to MGLC 40B 20-23 and 760 CMR 56 to authorize the construction of 189 rental units, 48 perpetually restricted as affordable units at 80% of AMI in 2 structures on an approximately 6.77 acre parcel of land located at 961 Broadway, lot number 1, plan number 1029, and 999 Broadway, lot 2. Waivers of local laws are requested per 40B from sections 2.4, 5.6, 5.7, 6.2, 6.8A, 6.8B, 6.8J, 6.9, 7.4L, 8, 10.2, and Article 12. Article 15, section of 21.1, zoning bylaws, and sections of 500, 702, and 703 of the general bylaws of the Town of Saugus to authorize zoning board of appeals to issue all local approvals under this section. I'd like to start the meeting with the pledge of allegiance to the flag, led by Bob Northup.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to introduce the board tonight. We have Mr. Frank Federico, Mr. Christopher Riley, Peter Rossetti, Mr. Robert Northup, Ms. Stephanie Romano, and my name is Tom Travers. We also have in the audience our clerk, Stephanie, and serving as counsel for the town is Jesse Shulman. If the petitioner would like to get started, okay.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Reardon. I'm the civil engineer for the project. Last meeting back in March, when Colin was here, I was out of town, so he was presenting on my behalf. Lynn is on her way. She should be here shortly. Some of you might remember me. I remember Chair Travers. I was the reviewer for the Saugus Ridge project, so I served in Phil's role. We kind of switched here. Alan Major was the designer, and I was the reviewer. So you are familiar with both of our work. If I could, I have just a slide presentation that I'd like to share if I could. If I just grab the HDMI cable here.
Oh, we might need the lights. We might, I don't know yet.
Go over the table. Why don't you go over the table?
Yeah, I have to.
Glad you're here, Pat.
Is your right?
Oh, we tried to make it
look
good.
I don't know.
It works. Everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
So this is we've got a couple pieces of this presentation tonight. One is first to cover civil engineering, which was the main focus for this evening. And what we're going to do is show you the changes that we've made in response to all the dialogue we've heard in the past, but principally in response to the changes and the comments made by Phil and his team at Allen and Major. We started out with a comment letter that had 93 comments. We responded to that with a new set of plans that developed the design a little bit, provided some additional detail. That's now been reduced down to, I think, 14 comments, I think 12 of which are stormwater related and probably something that mostly just engineers are interested in, but we've got most of those comments whittled down to just a few minor ones. Tonight, we're just gonna cover some real basic key issues, sort of in the order of importance from what we've heard. First is, we want to talk through the changes that we've made to increase the buffer zones to the Forest Street neighborhood, as well as to pull the project back a little bit along the Anglers Club to reduce the size of the walls there. Also want to just briefly go through parking. I know rock removal is also a question of concern, so we want to touch base on that. And then finally, just get people comfortable with the fact that we are coordinating right now with the gas line. I don't know if you remember from the last presentations, that we have a gas line that runs right through the middle of the site. Where we just talked to them today about doing a second round of testing just to make sure we know where everything is and we meet with all their requirements. And then the final thing is just to go through some of the construction management points of the proposal, just to make sure people understand how we plan on constructing the facility and where we plan on mobilizing our resources from. So real quickly, just want to get into the walls and the grading and the landscape buffers. So what we were able to do is, I'll go right into the plan. And just to help orient folks, over here is this is the Anglers property. This is Broadway down here, Route 1. This is Forest Street back here. And our site is right here behind the existing parking garage. And this is the existing office building, and this is the existing hotel.
I have a question. What are all those things up against the back? Is that part of the facility, or are you just in the front? What's in the back there? You know where that big black line is? And then there's like a cul-de-sac, it's a circle, what's all that? Go ahead, put your pointer right, come down a little more, come down towards me. See the eyeglass, what's all that?
The eyeglass?
Yeah, like a looking glass, right there, what is all that?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Right there, where you point.
This-
I think it's
oh,
a
that's the center
driveway.
turnaround.
Yeah.
So this is a driveway. We come in off of Route 1. We come in up the side. This is the existing 661 property, the small little stick frame house. We come up this side, and then we turn up and all heading uphill, and then this is a turnaround that services the front of Building B.
So that's Forest Street, that area?
Oh no, Forest Street is way back here.
No, way back.
It's about where my cursor is.
Way back.
And then the homes are about 230, 240 feet from the property.
Is there any way defeating this?
What do you mean, defeating the,
You know, like not letting it go through?
they have a, well, yeah, but they have a right to present themselves.
Okay, I just want to know.
And then this
Yeah.
board will take a vote.
All right.
Yeah, and we can get into any of the details as we
Okay,
go
go
forward.
ahead. All right, go ahead.
Just want to just briefly say, like, you've heard several different things, there's been comments that have happened all throughout the course, and I want to just explain some of the changes that we've made.
Okay,
We had a good meeting with the Anglers Club very early on, and there's a lot of concerns about the height of walls along that edge. So just real quickly, what we first were able to do is this wall along this edge here. We were able to pull that road and that wall in closer to Building A, which is the building at the top of the hill. Now what that did is it allowed us to reduce the height of that wall by 10 feet because that wall came back closer to the project and further up the hill, so we had less grade to navigate. So that wall came down 10 feet.
Which is what height?
Its highest height is about, I think, 16 feet, 17 feet at that time.
Okay.
And it might be a bit misleading because we've got stormwater features on the backside which have a depth of about 3 or 4 feet, so it might be a little bit, in reality, a little bit lower than that.
So you're saying you took off 10 feet of that wall from 26 to 16, just because you've moved it back closer to the road. But isn't it, the more accurate is that you've taken off the bottom half of the wall,
I was
correct?
just gonna say exactly that,
So the wall
exactly
still
that, yes.
raises, above sea level to the same point.
Yeah, we did, we dropped it about a foot just by changing the grading a little bit, but that was pretty much incidental. But the
Yeah.
big change is, to your point, it was actually because we pulled the wall back towards the project, we came up the hill,
Yeah.
reducing the amount of exposed walls is facing the Anglers.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Now similarly, we heard, a lot of questions about what was going on along this side of the property here, which is the Forest Street side. And at the original proposal, we had about a 7-foot offset between the wall and the property line. We've increased that by 10 feet, so that now we have 17 feet from the property line to the edge of parking. So instead of 7 feet, it's 17 feet. What cost it came at was we originally had 90-degree parking on both sides. Now we just have about 5 or 6, maybe less than 10 parallel stalls instead. So we lost all of those parking spaces on the opposite side in order to pull that roadway back away from the forest.
Was that the 50 parking spaces that weren't gonna be really usable, you know, people wouldn't really be able to get in and out of the car?
No, those are probably the premium parking spaces because they're so close to the building.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was
But those
there,
weren't,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
those weren't ADA compliant.
No, they were not. Yeah.
So those are gone.
Which ones are gone?
The 50, there's probably 50 going up that, after you come in and turn left.
Yeah,
The
there's still,
spaces to the right on the Forest Street property
there's still 46 spaces there
that are not compliant.
that are not, they're not handicap spaces, they're regular spaces. They're just standard parking spaces. So the handicap spaces are actually in here so that we can accommodate the flatness that we need for a handicap space. The challenge we've got on this site is we've got about a 65-foot grade change from Route 1 to the parking level at the top of the hill. And in order to maintain fire access, we've got to keep the slope of that road to under 10%.
And is this a one entrance, one in and one out, the same entrance to go in is the same one to come out?
It is correct, but a boulevard section, so it will be divided by a 10-foot wide island. So it'll look like two separate roads, but it is all from the same
But a
point.
fire truck can get in and a car can get by while the fire truck's going in?
Yes, without question, yes.
Wasn't there some question on lighting?
I'm just gonna scroll to the next one.
Into the neighborhood, you
Need a
know,
little bit better.
lighting from cars actually causing light pollution into the neighborhood, has that been dealt with?
Yeah, I think that came from the architectural review, but yes. So the way we're gonna address that is, we've got, if you can see here, this green and this green is all existing woods that is gonna stay in place. Most of the Forest Street woods is on the Forest Street parcels. A lot of the woods here adjacent to the anglers is on the subject parcel. But to your question, Tom, what we could foresee is cars coming this way. As they come up here, the light could shine through this area. So what we're planning here is we have a 6-foot stockade fence there that should keep the lights from going down into the neighborhood. Now,
And 6 foot, they can still climb that and get over it to make Forest Street access to walk, right?
oh, no, this wall here is probably close to 20 feet, 18 feet as well. Because
They climb the wall
we're
to an
changing
outhouse.
grade about, I'd say about from here to here, changing about 20 feet in grade, 15 feet in grade, and that, whereas this is all staying where it is. And this is pretty much the lowest part of the site here.
It's not fair to compare projects, but I think when you go to Hilltop, there's a problem with the fact that from Hilltop, you can access Forest Street so easily through those woods.
Oh,
There's
on
not
foot you
even a
mean?
fence up and such,
On foot?
5 foot.
Yeah,
yes.
there's,
And then that, I think the neighborhood will tell you, is an issue. And I think they're concerned that that same type of situation isn't gonna be present here. That you're not gonna be able to access from the apartments, you're not gonna be able to access the neighborhood 5 foot.
yeah, there's,
At least very easily, I know somebody can always,
in this case, probably not at all. I mean, you'd have to hike through. This is now a large detention pond.
okay.
So this would be basically an open water in a lot of vegetation. So the only way on foot to get from this project site to the Forest Street roadway is by walking along this side and then through the detention pond. This
Well,
wall,
you can go through the house that he bought too. They have a driver that goes right to the site.
but then that's where you get to this wall here. This is a vertical wall with the low side being on the Forest Street side. It's about, probably at that location, 18 to 22 feet tall.
But I think that's true today, though, and that's really, it's a different property that's independent of this project.
I'm
If
sorry,
somebody
was that-
wants to walk through Hockey Town, they can do it today, and if they wanted to get to that neighborhood, they could do it even after this project is built,
Yeah.
without climbing up a 60-foot hill and climbing a wall and a
Right.
fence and going through woods.
And we have
Just
a lot
have
of
to walk
drugs
around.
now that we get in our neighborhood
Yeah,
from that.
my
Yeah.
neighborhood too.
They
Yeah.
walk right through that forest. But go ahead.
That's a very accurate statement. So this is a paved access along Hockeytown, and they actually dump their snow in this area right here. So to your point, Chris, yeah, I mean, they can't get there through our site, but they can certainly get there through the Hockeytown site.
In regards to the perimeter on your site, what is the lowest point other than the entrance at Route 1 that the elevation would be? So like, if they were to jump over a wall per se, what would the smallest wall that they'd be able to climb down?
The place where the wall stops is right here. So this, right in this location here. So
Okay.
at this point, we start getting up, we start rising in grade so much that we can't keep up with it, and we also have the pond here. So this wall grows in size as you grow up, and it's facing, the wall face is towards Forest Street. Now, what's important on this is, right here, if you see where there's a little jog in what looks like the parking, that's where the wall changes from facing the neighborhood to facing the project, because there's about 40 feet of grade change from here to here. And what we do is we're traversing that grade change, and we switch from being a wall that's facing the neighborhood to a wall that's facing the project. So
So is
all
that-
of, sorry?
Is that like lower where the building is gonna sit?
Yes. So
By how many feet?
when you say lower it, as it relates to the surrounding grade, this wall here is about 18 feet tall,
Facing the building?
facing the building. Right. And this building is essentially, it's stepped, but it's obviously a flat plate, right? The floors aren't sloped, so it's leveled at about the midpoint of the average grade across that back of the parcel. But what that does is it creates a situation where the roadway in front of it is high relative to the neighborhood here, and then it transitions to being low relative to the neighborhood here.
How
And
much
it's about,
blasting they gonna do?
excuse me?
How much blasting are they gonna do?
Whether it's blasting or whether it's some other kind of excavation, I mean, it could be coring and splitting, it could be a lot of things. I would expect it to be blasting. Blasting is pretty efficient and pretty quick.
But you have a gas line.
We do, and we're actively coordinating with Kinder Morgan, the gas company.
Can they deny you?
They can't really deny us, but they
To make it very
can.
difficult?
Well, no, what they do is they make the size of the blast extremely small. So it becomes, instead of a larger blast and a lot of rock being generated at one time, you use much fewer blasts, removing
Oh, it
smaller
doesn't make the
pieces.
project smaller.
No, what they have is they have a 50-foot, well, it's actually a 30-foot easement. If you look in our plans, we show 50 feet of an area that we're trying to stay out of, because the gas company has a 30-foot permanent easement that we really can't do much of anything in, except cross it. And then they have 10 feet to either side, which is space that they're theoretically allowed to use for construction, so we're trying to stay out of that space as well. So that creates about a 10-foot buffer zone to each side of the gas line that we can sort of, we do our,
And
keep our work on.
and blasting won't affect the gas line?
Nope,
It'll affect our houses though, right?
not at all. And the blasting is really tightly controlled by both Saugus Fire Department. It's actually, because we're on Route 1, we'll probably also need a permit from Mass DOT. All of the material that's
Can that be
generated.
denied?
No.
And regarding blasting, I believe that homeowners within so many feet of the project can
Yeah,
do a
usually it's,
blast.
yes. Yeah, it's in the order of 300 feet.
But I'm sure
You
that
might be
extended.
outside 300 feet back.
That's not true though, because my house was very greatly affected from the blasting across Route 1.
Yeah.
So it depends on the fault line.
Yeah.
I have severe damage to my house, severe. Cracks in my foundation in my basement and cracks in all of my walls.
Usually
you
it
can't
depends on
say
the charge
300
that they use,
feet.
the amount of explosive and the type of round.
300 feet is what the requirement by the
I
law is.
understand that, but
But
that's not
if
who's gonna be
you-
When you
affected.
say that's on a,
Yeah,
So-
I'm sure.
think that's
So I know that, I don't know if I had any damage, but I worked from home, and when they were blasting, my house was shaking like crazy every time they blasted. So we're talking was all the way on the side behind Burger King, all way over there, and I still felt it.
No, you're actually, so in this case, it's like it's sort of a synergy of events, because rest assured, we're not gonna use a blast that's big enough to damage the gas line. The gas line is literally 15, 20 feet away from our excavation. So if the gas line is safe, you can be reasonably assured that a house 300 feet away is safe.
But if someone is more than 300 feet away and they request a blast survey, you'll accommodate them?
I can't speak to that. I don't know what the requirement is.
Within reasonable distance.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
If
not.
it's 400 feet,
Yeah.
you know.
Excuse me,
Whether
when you
it's the
say,
water table or if it's the fault line.
One at a time, please.
It's, whether it's the water table that helps carry the blast or the fault line, I don't know, but something carries the blast in that neighborhood a lot more than 400 feet.
and when you say a pre-blasting, what do you mean? They come to your house before, so you can't put
The
a plan
pre-blast
in
survey,
and
they
say
go,
that-
they
yeah.
come to your house, they
Yeah.
look at your foundation, then after the blasting is done, you can have them come back and look and see if there's any
Yeah,
damage.
They video it.
yeah,
The video, yeah.
that's the HV with it. Okay.
There's a, hand
Hi.
in the back.
So in reference to that, they come in and they survey, they check your property, let's assume that there's cracks or there's damage that's been done. Who ends up paying? Is there money put into escrow? How do we know that the company just doesn't default and disappear and not actually pay for damage done like she had with her property?
That's all managed through the blasting company. So people like main drilling and blasting, this is all they do every day, all day, and they manage everything as part of that process. So they provide the fire department with all the details, they do all the blast surveys, they have all the insurance, so everything is a function of the people doing the blasting.
So they would present that prior to the project to the people in the area that are getting their properties checked?
What they do is they file a permit application with the fire department.
Yeah.
Then that kicks off all the requirements of that permit. One of which, to the board member's point, is a pre-blast survey for all properties, all structures within a certain distance. And I think, I want to say it's 250 feet, but I'm not sure.
So, I have a question on,
Can I just real briefly, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll do whatever the chair wants. We had a few slides to go through. If you want, I can just go through the slides really quickly and just touch on the issues and then come back to questions.
If that's okay with you.
So just to recap, the big change is pulling that wall closer to the project, reducing the wall height at the angular side, pulling that closer to the project. Most of the rest of the project stayed pretty similar. We added a lot more detail on the stormwater design, we added a lot more detail on the parking, we had a lot more detail throughout the project. As it relates to parking, just real quickly on that, this is a shared use site because we have the office building and we have the residential use. Under zoning, we're allowed to accommodate parking through a shared scenario because as you can imagine, the office space pretty much only needs space between 7 in the morning and 5 in the evening, come or go. Overnight, very little, whereas the residential space needs all the spaces overnight. So the zoning bylaw allows us to share parking by looking at different time intervals and picking satisfying needs in those different time intervals. The bottom line is zoning requires us to have 355 spaces to serve both the office and the residential project. We provide 384. The office peak is about 165 spaces. All 165 spaces are spaces that are shared in the garage. And then the
What's that,
residential.
800 spaces, 800 and something spaces?
No, 355 spaces required, 384 provided. So we have about 29 extra spaces on the site.
Wonderful, we can't get out now.
And then most of those spaces are coming from the existing garage. So I don't know if you recall, but the garage was sized for a much bigger office building. So we have about 214 spaces of the 339 in the garage that are usable for the office and the project.
Is that garage gonna have to be rebuilt? Somebody said they've been in there and it looks like it has to be, no?
No,
Okay.
no. And then we have about 80 some odd spaces below the buildings, so undercover. We have about a little over 80 spaces on the site. Only about 20% of our parking is actually at grade or on the site. Everything else is in structured parking. Let me just go real quickly. Then, as it relates to stormwater, I think probably most of the work that we did over the course of the last month or so is to further develop the stormwater basis of design and the stormwater detail. That's the information that the peer reviewer asked for in his team. We basically deal with it in a few different ways. Essentially we have to evaluate it for where all the water currently leaves the site. We have to make sure that we don't increase the amount of runoff that goes off the property at all those locations. We have to make sure that the water is clean enough to leave the site to meet standards. And then we have to make sure that we're not sort of stealing water that would otherwise replenish the groundwater table. Those are called the stormwater standards. In Massachusetts, we have rules that say, this is what you need to do to make sure that you're treating stormwater properly when you develop a
Do
site.
you have to put holding tanks up there?
No holding tanks. What we have is we have 4 ponds. One existing pond, which is an existing pond out front here.
And that's how you're gonna release the water into ponds?
All the water runs off to the ponds, and then the ponds are located at strategic locations where the original discharge happens under existing conditions. So we have an existing pond here that served the development of the original project, and they're just putting brand new pumps in this pond. Then we have probably the largest pond that receives the majority of the flow from this side of the site is in the low-lying area where the hockey town puts their snow right now. That area will be expanded and used for storage of stormwater. And then we have 2 small ponds, one small pond here and one small pond here. Originally, we had a larger pond right here, but what that did is it created a lot of grading and did a lot of tree clearing towards the anglers. So what we tried to do is we tried to split it up into 2 smaller ponds that we could sort of nestle right into the corners and then keep as much as we possibly could of this area wooded. And again, that's out of sort of to try and minimize impacts on the anglers.
Is this gonna affect the anglers?
No, not in any way.
Too bad.
Too bad. You don't like the anglers?
Excuse me,
You like the anglers.
quick question.
Yep.
So the retention ponds, so the water gets diverted to the retention ponds, then where does the water go? I missed that part.
The water's held in the pond and then released at the same rate that it currently goes off
So it
site.
just gets it's just nature takes over, it's absorbed or evaporated?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not much absorption that happens on this site because it's
Right. It's rock.
just a big rock,
Yeah.
right? As far as our design goes, we don't have to compensate so much for that lost recharge because there's not a lot of recharge happening. But what we do have to make sure is that the water that runs off the site now, that when we develop the site, we're not making it run off any faster. So if you can imagine,
Oh.
if I have a lawn and it rains, your water doesn't run off very quickly. If I turn that into a parking lot,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it rains, it runs off a lot faster. So what we have to do is, we're essentially doing that over much of the site. We're taking areas that are woods and areas that are shrubs and turning them into either roofs or pavement. So what we need to do is that water that's running off faster now, we have to put it in ponds and hold it so that we can release it at the same rate that it happened.
And how do you release it?
What we have is we have these things called outlet control structures. And they're just big concrete structures that have strategically placed openings that only allow a certain amount of water out as the water rises in the pond. So it's really just like, it's kind of like a throttle or the reverse of a throttle. So as the water rises in the pond,
Yeah,
it gets released.
It's like an expansion valve you put at the end of pools if you have a high water table.
Similar.
So you made the other pond bigger because they put their snow, and now you're gonna put more water into that near the hockey town.
Yeah, the snow doesn't really have anything to do
Well, it
besides the
melts.
pond. Well, we'll have to deal with that.
Okay.
But most of the water that we're dealing with is when it rains, and when it rains really hard.
Like, recently, Route 1 was flooded at the
Yeah,
bottom.
that's somewhat of my concern, and it's been some concern of residents for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
If you have knowledge of the area, you know what happens out in front, down in front of right now,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
in a bad storm.
Yes.
Is anything being done to alleviate that problem?
Not
Any
to,
of this gonna help with that situation?
Hi.
Hi, Lynn Speed, LDS Consulting Group. Great to see everybody. Love this setting. We can actually see the screen. Pretty cool. So you may notice that there's construction going on right outside the property right now. Sal has bought some new pumps that he's installing in the roadway that should help with the problem.
Okay. Thank you.
How do you size the retention pond? Is it on a 100-year storm?
It's actually 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm.
Okay.
So what we have is under the stormwater standards, you're required to match pre-development conditions for the 2 and 10-year storm. So we do it usually for the 2, 10, and 25. And then for the 100-year event, you really have to make sure, because it's such a sort of a cataclysmic event and it's a lot of water, it's about 8 inches of water happening in 24 hours. You just have to make sure you've controlled it and managed it in a way that you know where it's going and that you're treating it appropriately. One of the comments that Alan and Major asked for was, the standards we have are pretty old, and they use rainfall intensities, which is, this is the way you refer to a storm, is over a 24-hour period how much rain falls. So the numbers we use now and that we're required to use under the standards are old numbers. So A&M asked for us to look at new numbers, which are called NOAA 14 numbers, which we did that as well. Our design accommodates those in, with some minor modifications, but can very easily accommodate those.
Thank you.
And then just real quickly, we talked about the rock removal already. We've got about 45,000 yards of excavation, so that's a lot of excavation. About 20,000 of that is going to be used back on the site because we've got a lot of excavation and we've got a lot of area to fill because of that. Remember we were talking about that area where we transitioned from an exposed wall towards Forest Street and an exposed wall to the project. Well, on the side to Forest, that exposes to Forest Street, that's all fill material that we need to bridge to get up to the upper level. And then what we have to show you for that, we included in our last comment letter. This is a heat map. The red is where we have excavation or cut. The green is where we have fill. The really pale pinky is pretty much staying at grade, about less than a foot of excavation. But you can see the bulk of our excavation is in this building here, foundation system, because we're changing probably 20 feet, 25 feet of grade just along the front of this building here.
So you're gonna put more fill where the green is on the right?
Exactly, exactly. Because if you can imagine, right, this goes up and then comes down in current conditions. Right now, it's gonna, as we need to get up the hill, we need all of this distance in order to raise grade to get up to the top and over the gas line as we get up over the hill here.
That was my question, and now where the red is, you're removing all that rock.
Correct.
So how deep is the gas line, and the grade will increase to
Nope.
get over the gas?
So this pink area through here, this is where the gas line runs. So this is
green.
Very little, if any, excavation through here.
And where the green is where the gas line is?
Yeah, this...
On the top?
No.
No, the gas line runs across, from Forest Street through here.
Right through the green.
Comes right between the two buildings, and then between the building and the garage, and then out this back of the parcel here. So we cross the gas line in two locations. We cross it here, and we cross it here.
And how do you cross it? With fill?
Well, actually, we've got to maintain 5 feet of separation from the road to the top of the gas line. That's why we're doing all the test bits. We got to make sure we've got 5 feet of cover. But by crossing it, I mean we cross it with a roadway. So
You cross over the pipe?
Yeah, right now it's crossed over by the existing fire access road, which gets up to the top of the building to protect this building here. But we're proposing to cross it here and here.
I believe Walnut Street, and don't quote me, but I believe Walnut Street and also Main Street also cross the gas line, so.
Oh, yeah, it gets crossed everywhere.
So is S6.
That's like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So on the map, the Forest Street is east on this map, right? East side, the right side of the plan?
On this map, it is west, so there's the north arrow
Forest Street is
here.
west?
Yeah, so there's the north arrow here.
Yeah, it's hard to see from back there.
Yep. But on the sheet, it's north. So
On the
like,
sheet it's north.
yeah, so it's on the top. So Forest Street
Okay.
is runs right
Okay.
about here. Yeah.
So, and then, I apologize, I came in a little late, but I don't know if you've already answered the question. The retaining wall at Forest Street, is that gonna be visible at all from, Forest Street itself and, to any of the neighbors or driving down one of the side streets towards Forest Street, you can see the
So the only wall that's even potentially visible from Forest Street is this section of wall right here. And that's the section that, I don't know if you will be able to see it, but you could possibly see it as you look up the driveway of 45.
That's right.
Right.
You can get through to it that way too.
But if you look here, we've got a lot of screening planted here that should buffer that view, and it's like 300 feet away, so
Can you give me a landmark of where on Forest Street? Is that like the end of Gilway or Milano?
That's where Dakota's house was and the house that he bought. His driveway goes right into that.
We've got, if we can get through this, we've got a whole
Okay.
architectural presentation that's gonna show
Okay,
you all
okay,
pretty,
okay.
a lot. This is a two-dimensional plan, so it's a lot harder to understand. The work that the architects have done is all three-dimensional, and aerials will be able to see it really, really clearly. And then really, let's just close up with just as far as managing construction. We've got a couple things that control our construction. We have what's called a NIPD's permit, which is a required permit for when you disturb more than an acre. And this is a permit that requires all sorts of construction controls, all sorts of management techniques that ensures that you're managing stormwater during construction. The standards, which we were talking about earlier, pretty much are mostly focused on making sure that the project, when it's built, doesn't create any problems. So that space in between where we're doing construction has its own set of rules for how you manage it during construction.
So it's nifty. And then what is it?
NPDES.
Oh.
It's called, it's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System.
And the second one is what?
No, and the second one is just, we'll have a construction management plan for the project. We'll also have conditions on a permit. Where at present, we're not anticipating being within jurisdiction of Conservation Commission, so we're not gonna have an order of conditions, but
Too bad.
we will have a lot of documentation and a lot of rules that we need to play by. The key point being that all of our construction access is from Route 1. So we'll be using this as our only entry. Nothing will go to Forest Street during construction. Agreed, we can't get there post-construction because of the walls, but you could theoretically get there during construction because right now it's passable by a machine or some heavy equipment. But we will organize everything down by Route 1, and all of our construction access will all come and go by Route 1.
So 45 Forest Street where Palumbo bought, that cannot be used as an access.
Correct.
Even in an emergency, the wall is gonna be 17 feet, but every wall can come down, right?
No, there's no way that wall can come down because
Oh.
otherwise we don't have emergency access for the buildings. So there's literally nothing that can change that wall.
Okay.
What's the plan for dirt control on Route 1? Do you just have a 50-foot like riprap?
Yeah, we'll probably have a wheel wash station as well, depending. And one of the good things about being in ledge is it's a lot cleaner than being in dirt. Right, so, the runoff is a lot easier to manage. We're certainly generating it a lot quicker, but it's not laden with all the sediment and all the typical things that cause problems.
I did notice though, when they were doing across the highway, they were bringing dirt onto the highway still, even though, I mean, they were actually weighing in trucks because they were selling gravel there, but.
And there will be a highway access permit with DOT, so the Department of Transportation will control everything that comes in.
And is my math correct, that 25,000 tons are leaving?
About 25,000 yards.
Yards, okay.
Yeah.
So give or take 25 to 30 tons.
Probably close, I think it's about 1.5 tons per yard. Yep. So probably closer to 40,000 tons.
How much is the square foot to build this project?
I have no idea.
Project
I'm just a simple guy.
6.77 acres. Does that sound correct, Lynn?
And it's
I'm sorry,
450
what?
per square
The
foot?
size of the project is 6.77 acres.
No, the
That's
square
not-
footage of the building.
I think they budgeted
That sounds
between,
small.
I think they budgeted between $200 and $250 a square foot cost. if I
Is that-
remember from the
I'm sorry,
document.
there's
Is that up
two
to
different
date?
questions.
Is that up to date, 250 per square foot?
The architect didn't think it was realistic
Yeah, he
last
thought it was
meeting. He
like
said, no
double.
way.
That was our peer review.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was
Has
an
the bids gone
architect.
out yet for
correct?
this
Yeah.
project?
Yes.
All right, well, we gotta get beyond civil, so, I mean, if we wanna wrap up the civil, I
Yeah.
can go to the architect and maybe you guys can focus those kind of questions.
And you'll still remain here when we come back. to
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Q&A.
Let me just
Before I
answer-
let
me
Mr.
answer
Reardon
Tom's
go.
question. Or the chair's question, sorry.
I'm sorry, Lynn.
You want to
She's
answer
looking
your
up the answer
question
to your
about
question.
the coverage? I'm getting there.
And he's gonna get financing for 450,000 a square foot?
That's his game.
450, really? Oh.
The bid's gone out yet?
Oh, no.
That's,
Okay.
financing is the developer's game, so I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
He's got a lot of money.
Oh, do you want to bring it up?
He's
No, I can switch the.
a qualified business.
No, okay, if you want, okay, so you, okay, so, quickly, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, the lot coverage, 13% of the lot will be covered by buildings, 29% by parking and paved areas, and 49% of open space. Is that the question you asked?
If you want the square footage.
The square
How much
footage
to
of...
build the building per square foot and to do all the
What's
excavating
the
and,
cost?
We're not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
oh.
Is it, what was your question?
I think we're set.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a copy of your letter here that you received from your peer reviewer, the architect. As far as the cost is concerned, he said the construction cost is budgeted at $217 a foot, square foot. Given the fact that this is a multiple building project on a site that requires extraordinary amount of site work, this number appears to be very low. In order to deliver the proposed project in the current building environment at that cost, it is the reviewer's opinion that the design would have to be radically different from what is indicated in the submitted documents. And that's just, but my question also too is, the changes that are being made here, they're talking about being made here, are these on plans that are being submitted to your board? Have they been submitted to your board? These changes?
yeah, we received all sorts of paperwork, changes and such. We haven't received any, I'll let their attorney speak for a second. It looks like he has something he wants to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the financial feasibility of the project is within the sole jurisdiction of the subsidizing agency. At the end of this process, my client will have to go through what's known as a final approval process with the subsidizing agency, in which they will have to get financing commitments from NEF lender banks, and the subsidizing agency will review to make sure that the project is in fact financially feasible. So that's a process that occurs outside of this.
Yeah, but there's also-
Are you satisfied with that answer, Mr.
Mike,
Long?
Bob, are you
Are you satisfied with his answer? I don't know if you heard it.
You haven't received the plans yet, right, with the revisions?
No, not the full revision. But I'm just wondering if you're satisfied. You were talking, I don't know if you heard his response.
But it's solely up to the financing and it's a secret. That's not your business.
It's not a secret.
Basically, my concern is, after
Wait a
you
minute, wait a
guys
minute.
approve it, even with conditions, you dig the hole, you start the project, he runs out of money when we have another foundation like's already on the property.
That's where the state comes in.
That's right, someone gotta
That's
come
where the
in, that's
attorney
what I'd
just,
like to know.
the attorney just answered that
What you
question.
just said.
Yeah,
Oh, you didn't?
to reiterate, in order to be able to move forward with the project, we are going to have to get a funding commitment letter from a bank. They are going to review the figures. They are going to, certainly not going to fund a project that is not financially viable.
So why is there a foundation already on the property?
Could he sell the
Wait,
property
I
after
think
he
I'm
gets the
losing a little bit of
permits?
control.
He asked, why is there a foundation already on the property?
Is there a foundation on the property currently?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Excuse me, Lynn, to you, is there a foundation on the property?
No.
Is there existing foundation?
There is an existing foundation, if I can use my mouse, like right around here next to the office building. There's the office building, right? Am I in the right spot? That I think that they were contemplating at some point, another phase of the office building. That foundation is going to be removed as part of this project.
That was years ago.
So is this?
Years ago.
Is this the office building that's there now?
Correct.
Correct, yeah, so Jay, if there are no other questions,
That's the foundation that's
Jay's got
being
lots of pretty pictures for you, I promise. Can answer a lot of questions, I hope.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
is the gentleman saying on the financing that they would like your approval with the proposed changes that you see fit? And then they would go forward, if they get your approval, then they would go forward and secure the financing. Is that the route that you're talking about taking?
Mr. Schoen, I think.
I'm not sure what the question is.
Me either. That's why I'm looking at you a little bit.
My question is this, your peer architect has talked about the square footage cost, and that's fine. I don't know beans about that. But what I am saying is that tonight is being devoted towards changes that have been recommended. And the question did come up regarding this cost per square foot. This is going to be a very expensive project. I think most of us who are involved around here know that. So what I'm saying is, are you folks being asked, one, you're going to get new plans with the changes on the plans, and two, with those changes on the plans, you're being asked to approve it or reject it one way or the other. But should you approve it, then these folks would have to go forward to find the financing for that approved project, if that's in fact what you do.
So, Mr. Chair, that is correct. Once the board issues an approval, then we go through the final approval process. Part of that process is getting a funding commitment from an NEF lender bank. That commitment will be based upon the plans as approved by the board.
Okay.
I have a question. Why does this project started in the first place on Gilway? I go back and forth to Florida, so I'm not here a lot, but why was this project all of a sudden established and something's
wasn't all
gonna
of
be
a
built
sudden.
on Gilway?
All of a sudden, this has been talked about being developed in the last 50 odd years.
But she's asking why there?
Why there? There's no other place?
Where Mr. Plummer owns the
We
property.
have a water problem there, we have problems there.
I have one more question. Did you do a study on
Anything
how
in
many
excess
cars
comes
are
back
on
to
Route
the
1
municipality.
and how much more this is
There
going
was
to...
a traffic study.
When was it done, in August? July? July, when no one's around. That's good.
No, that's
Wakefield
not,
had a
be fair.
development, a 40.
I am being fair, she said July.
That's what the man said.
They don't chase certain months of the year, they know
Well,
to adjust.
July, you don't have schools in
They know how to
They
adjust to that.
charged rent in excess of what they were allowed on the 40
Quick
B.
question.
Yes, sir.
A comment about
Yeah, the town
project
came,
being
the
on
town
Gilway.
of Wakefield took
Yeah.
to court.
And what am I
in
missing?
one
I live on
case.
Gilway, so
Because
Yeah.
we were supposed to give that
what
access
project
back
is
to
being done
Wakefield
on
for
Gilway?
development.
Not on Gilway, she's saying it's
In the Gilway
affecting
neighborhood.
Gilway.
Mr. Chair, if I may, could we just finish our presentation and then we'll, happy to take
Sure,
any
you
questions?
just make sure.
I feel like we're getting off track a little bit.
I think so, so your name
Yeah.
for Stephanie.
Sure, my name is Jay Samansky. I'm an architect with TAT. We're the architects for the project.
Okay,
So I know through the past couple of meetings, there's been a lot of discussion about the walls, the retaining walls, what they'll look like from the outside of the project looking in. So we tried to come up with some images that describe how that will look from the outside. So this first view is taken from the south, looking at the project. You'll see on the right side of the image is Route 1 here. This is the existing office building. This is the existing hotel, and Hockey Town is in the background.
Right, that's what.
So these are our two new proposed buildings. And what you can see in the foreground is the wall that we've been talking about, this kind of serpentine-shaped wall. This portion of the wall is what faces the anglers. And what we're showing here is that, one, the wall will be topped with a fence, but also the front of the wall will be buffered with new landscaping. So what we're showing there is a line of trees that will be placed in front of that wall to mask that view from the perimeter.
And the height of that wall will be 16 feet or approximately?
Maximum, right. So it varies along the length of the wall, but the maximum is about 16 feet.
What's the lowest?
Zero. It currently goes to zero.
Excuse me?
It goes to zero, so it starts to retain fill where we can't grade it. So all the walls start at zero height, and then they change as you go across the site.
So this next view is taken from above Forest Street, looking back at the wall. And again, this portion of the wall is what was described as the tallest part of that wall. As you come in the drive from Route 1 here, make that turn, and then continue up the slope. And at a point about here, the wall flips and goes the other way. So the land closest to Forest Street is actually higher than our proposed site. So the building you see there in the foreground, this building, is actually set lower. The bottom of that building is set lower than this grade. It's
And this is a recent change.
set into the hill. Not really, no.
How many feet back is it, that wall from Forest Street? How many
Yeah,
feet?
that's exactly what I was just gonna ask.
350 feet
I'm not as smart as you,
from the
Gary.
street.
So it's 150 feet, you said? So-
350.
Oh, so I'm standing on Fire Street looking at the project, it's 350 feet in front of me?
Correct.
To the wall?
At what height at the end of Gilway, roughly?
I'm not sure where Gilway is.
It's the highest point, it's that corner, it's that lower left corner.
Or the right.
So
That corner right there,
The
see?
lower left corner.
Above his head,
Where the turn is.
above Trump's
Right-
head.
Little
Here?
right there, yeah, that's, I believe that's the end of Gilway Street.
Yeah.
So what's the question?
So
What's that?
you're 350 away, and how
Horizontally
how
300.
how high is that?
18 feet in that corner?
So it's not on
He's
this,
checking it.
it's not on this.
I think he's asking for the elevation.
Yeah.
14 feet. So
So
the
this
road
portion
is
of the wall.
14 feet lower than the Forest Street property.
So could you see it?
The road
Right,
is
totally.
lower.
You're gonna see the
14
building,
feet
even
lower.
if you don't see the wall.
I can't believe this.
Yeah, no,
The height of that
on the
wall.
No, I think,
yeah, no, I wanted to, what
I
is
think
the
he's saying-
height of the wall? What
It's
is
about
it?
22 feet
It's 22
in
feet.
that corner. Yep.
So 350, 22.
So
Gonna
again, in
see
this
it.
view, I want to point out the new planting that we're showing in front of that wall to hide
Yeah.
the height of that wall.
What is the material of that, construction of that, what is the material? Is it
It's a concrete block wall.
Ready, rock.
So a modular concrete block wall.
can I
You're
ask
kidding
you,
me.
They're
How-
big blocks.
I
They're not
understand
typical.
exactly what you're talking about. You're really gonna put that onto a beautiful neighborhood?
Well, again, it's 350 feet away from the
I
street.
understand.
Can I ask one question though? Property.
How close are the property lines?
Yeah,
It's 350 to the street, but
what, 100 yards?
17 from the property line?
The wall is
17
about
feet?
17 feet from the property line, correct.
And can I ask,
17 feet from the property
I
line.
can't.
It changes a little bit.
So you could throw a rock
because-
over there if you wanted, yeah?
Excuse me?
I said you could just throw a rock over the fence if you wanted, you know, I mean, it's pretty close.
So
Oh,
the
yeah,
people,
it's very close.
Near that exit sign,
so the
17
people
feet.
on living on Forest Street, their backyard is gonna be a wall.
17 feet away.
And how are they gonna build the wall on the Forest Street side? Like, how do they have access?
Tricia was.
But she's,
Like, where, you know how are they gonna put that stone in there without having access to the people that live on that side of Forest?
Yeah, it-
Because we're not on the we're 17 feet off of the property line, so that gives them enough room to build that wall.
They're gonna build it from the Route 1 side and then somehow kinda,
Drop the lots over.
because it's a bit of a drop off.
you cannot do this to this neighborhood. You
know what I mean?
cannot do
They're-
this to the
they're
people who
doing it.
live on Forest Street.
I just don't understand why we weren't even
Horrible.
notified. Like, how was the neighborhood not
So their
notified?
property value goes to nil.
Nothing.
So we have some more images if we can keep going.
Can I just ask one quick question before we move forward?
Sure.
Where are you gonna find 17 and 18-foot trees to hide that
I
wall?
was wondering the same
Yeah.
thing.
We
Or is
do-
that
we
like the
have that at
10-year
the end.
plan that
We
they
get through
grow
the
in?
presentation. Just let's get through the presentation. We do have our landscape architect here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's about a 20-year-old tree.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she's here.
Arborvitae's are about 20 years
That's what
old.
I was wondering, the same thing. It is a
Um,
good point.
Trees are not gonna
then I'll
hide
do
it.
Okay, so let's keep moving. This view is from Main Street. Of course, this is the Anglers building in the foreground here. This is the current condition, and this is the proposed without building in place.
How many stories is that now?
So this building in the foreground is 6 stories. So again, this is a little bit closer. This is behind the Anglers building, across the pond.
Yeah.
Wow.
The before's a nice, peaceful picture.
Yeah.
I love that.
So this view,
And they can't stop this, the anglers? They can't do anything to stop this?
Can anybody stop this? Or is this already done?
I think we have to move along. Let that gentleman give his
I
presentation.
think that was a legitimate question, though.
Yeah.
Out of all the questions asked tonight, I think that's.
It's already been answered.
Do we have a forest?
It's already been
He owns
answered.
the
I
property.
didn't hear it.
He owns
It's
the
answered that there will
property.
be a vote whether this board will move forward with this project.
Okay.
There'll be a vote after all the presentation.
Tonight?
And that's been answered.
No.
No, not tonight. There will be a vote.
Okay.
That's pretty.
Do you have one of those pictures from the forestry side?
we do.
Yeah, my phone on and look.
All right, so what's the difference between this one and the last one? I can see what it is, but I can't see what it is.
Building and no building.
So the difference is we've taken out that added buffer landscaping that hides the wall.
Yeah.
So in this view, you can see the wall to give you a sense of how high that wall is.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is put landscaping in front of that so that you can't see the wall. So that's what this is demonstrating.
Well, it's not the problem.
We
So
want to
again,
see the.
This is from a little further down Main Street, again, before and after. And a couple of views from Forest Street, so this is the existing condition.
It's Joe's house.
Now show it with the building.
Is that,
That is what
That
it
is the building.
is that accurate height? Because I have a hard time doing the site review recollection that that's the right height.
is, the right height.
And what about
What
if
is the-
you,
Those existing trees, sorry.
Look more like a
Go
silhouette
back.
for me.
So this is
What if
Because
you
you're not
go
gonna
back?
see it because
Not
there's
in
trees.
Oh,
Again, there's 350 feet of trees between this view and the new building, so it's a very
But you
dense
can
buffer.
see the building, see it right
And they
there?
got right up close to that property.
From September.
We have a few more aerial views. Again, this is,
I don't know, it's like they sat on the lawn of the.
This is awful.
that's the proposed.
It's the
Oh my God, that's big.
That's from
I thought
looking
I
across
was
the
at
Anglers
Encore.
Pond.
I look like I
So, again, this one is showing the difference between the buffer landscaping and without it, so you can get a sense of what that landscaping is doing. That's without it,
We get a
and
sense.
that's with it.
I think you're gonna need higher trees.
yeah.
And
So,
then, I don't think our landscape architect is here, but this is the landscape plan. I do want to point out the difference in the colors of the trees here. You'll see around the perimeter, there's a dark green. That's all this buffer planting that we're talking about, that helps screen that wall.
are they evergreens?
They are.
I think the next
So this is the next slide of some of the species that she was considering using. And again, they won't be 20 feet when they're planted, but within a few years.
Okay, I don't need to. I have, I'm just.
Is there any chance that this board won't pass it?
No doubt.
Can I just say something? I've been in my house 17 years.
Yep.
I planted arborvitaes 15 years ago. They have just reached 15 feet high,
How big were they when you planted them?
8 feet. They're slow growing. It's gonna take 10 years to grow that wall.
The blue boys grow quicker though, but that don't matter. We need them on the roof of the
Could we
building.
please finish the presentation?
Sure.
You know, there are many different species, and I can't say that I'm an expert, but I believe that our landscape architect has chosen fast-growing trees that are going to be growing 3 feet a year.
3 feet,
So
yeah.
we can certainly revisit it and have her here at the next meeting, which is technically architecture. But, you know, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say
No,
about
that was the
your
last
slides.
slide.
Yeah.
Do I have any constructive questions from the audience?
I don't know where you've been, Tom, but they're all constructive. We don't want the construction.
So,
Used to.
when
So-
When you were showing the pictures from the forestry, you mentioned it was 350 feet of buffer,
Right.
but then earlier you said something about 17 feet.
From the people that
From
live
the
there.
Somebody asked how far from the property line
Oh.
to the wall.
Okay,
from
so
the-
it's 350 from forest, but 17 from behind the house?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
From our side of Forest.
Do you have a picture of what that would look like?
Show 'em.
So you can actually see that here. So the rear property line is here.
Yeah.
And you can see their wall, but these
Yeah.
properties are 350 feet deep.
But 17 feet from the end of the property line.
Correct, from the property line.
From
up to
their
the
property
home.
line,
Yeah, it's
17.
250 feet from their
From
homes.
the houses.
And
So
actually,
what are the elevations on the two buildings now, A and B? Because it looked like B is the back one,
yeah,
and that got lowered. So is the, like,
It didn't really get lowered, it's the same as it was.
yeah, so from grade to the roof,
So this building steps as you move up the slope, so it's not
on
one
top of the hill,
continuous
though,
height.
yeah, the very top, how, what's
So-
We're gonna get back to some of that next meeting.
So it's 88 feet from the absolute lowest to the absolute highest. But there's
How high is
20
it?
feet and
25 feet of grade.
25 feet in grade change, so it's,
60-something feet?
yeah, 88 minus 25.
You actually traverse 3 levels. So the parking on the low end, then you go to the first floor, and the parking on the high end are up to 3
Why
different
don't you
I'm
levels.
just
show us
thinking
the
that the higher
buildings
you
like
are
you did
on the mountain,
before?
the higher it's gonna
Can you
put,
bring up the building? Yeah, there
Building.
they are.
can it be
You can
adjusted
see it.
that way at all?
You can see it stepping here.
Shave off the top 2 floors.
It doesn't matter, they shouldn't build it.
Why wouldn't you put the parking at the higher grade so it's not looking into the neighborhoods like with the apartments? Put the buildings lower towards Route 1 and go straight up instead of stepping, and go stepping up so that you're not going over the gas line and your parking is up there and all the green spaces at the back half, which is closer to forest. And have the building part closer to Route 1, which is already somewhat demolished down there.
Mr. Chairman, it's getting very difficult to respond to all the various questions that are being asked. Can I request that all questions be funneled through the board
Yes,
to our representatives
Okay.
rather
Yes,
than
we'll
just
do
showing
it
up?
technically.
yes.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, do I get an answer to that one?
Yeah, you can give me a question.
So I was curious, why is it so necessary to have the actual building highest on the grade and still that many floors where you have parking? Why can't you put the parking at the back part so it's more of a buffer towards forest and put the actual buildings closer to Route 1 and the higher part closer to Route 1?
Well, so this drawing shows the available site that we have to work with is colored in this plan. So everything that's white in this plan, we can't build on. So that's the existing parking garage, that's the existing hotel, this is the parking for the hotel. So that's not available land to build on.
Oh,
So it's basically too big, is what the other guy said.
It's down the middle.
The peer review mentioned it was
And
too
the gas
large.
easement that runs down the middle, so we have to straddle each side of that gas easement as well.
What is the opportunity to modify this so it's a lot smaller build?
You know, this is the project that's been submitted, so.
Yeah, if they go smaller. it won't be
Well, I know,
effective.
but let's be realistic.
I don't think it's gonna be cost effective anyway.
We never got the actual balloon visual when we did the site to see how tall that really is. So we could see it from forest and get a visual of how tall that building is. Because I really have a hard time believing that the image that you supplied is the real view that we'll have, because I can already see through the trees.
There was
So
an
with the real
attempt at
height-
that.
But that,
I remember we attempted that one
Yeah,
day when the
windy.
weather was really bad.
I feel like we need to all see that to see like the real height, because that was, felt very distorted.
We tried that, didn't work well.
Well, we try again.
It's never gonna work well.
Better-
because it's
better
always
weather
gonna be
now
with
to
the
do it.
high.
Well, you don't just not do it. We live there. Don't disregard what I say. That's not polite.
I'm still waiting to find out about the new traffic study, what happened with
Yeah,
that.
that was today, right?
Tom, we can't get out on Route 1.
It's an issue for this project.
So with regard to the question about the traffic study, it's my understanding that traffic is going to be covered at the next meeting. The town hired a traffic peer reviewer who reviewed the study that we provided. We provided feedback on that, and we're waiting for them to get us feedback on the information that we provided. So that hearing is going to be in 2 weeks, and the topic will be taken up again.
I have a question for the board, so, because you have to go through you to talk, right?
Okay.
So, I want to follow the rules, which I'm not too good at. But anyway, so this traffic study's gonna have a date of when they did it, right?
Yes, and if it's, the month of the year will adjust. They know if traffic is in April, and if the study was done for July, they know what percentage that they can adjust, the number of cars for, like you said, vacations and such. That's all gonna be into consideration. It's really intense, and they're very professional in their presentation.
Oh, I can tell, we got so many professionals, we can't get out on Route 1.
Yeah, that's,
Tom, I'm not being funny, I'm being serious
I
here.
live on Route 1.
I know. It's really,
I know what it
I don't
takes to
believe
get in and out.
that we just get sold out to these conglomerates. I mean, don't you care about the people?
No.
Not you personally, all of you. I mean, come on, we have so much construction. Now they're building on the dinosaur. Now the guy that owns the dinosaur wants to build more across, I mean, come on.
Let's stay to this project.
Has nothing to do with this.
Let's stay to this project, and we also want to, but I will go off a little bit. We also want a west side fireplace, and we want to equip it. We want to man it, and that's a full professional, not just fire, but police, and that's got to be paid for. And do you want a $2,000 override, or do you want to use Route 1?
This is $2,000 override here.
$2,000.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I think this is really.
Your taxes may go up that much if you
My
don't.
taxes have gone up anyway, it's like
And
play
they're
the
gonna
lottery, they
continue.
were gonna go down, they don't go down. You have all these buildings, the taxes didn't go down.
I know, this is
No,
what I don't
because
understand.
there's a certain rate they can only tax.
Just think of us people, that's all. When you make your decision, think, you're a person too, just think. Because this is disgusting. Saugus was beautiful, it was country. God. Guy bought the Continental to make it a steakhouse. You really think that's why he bought it? There's gonna go more condos.
Yeah.
I know, it's just, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I was here when it was a farm.
So you brought up a good point about the override and the fact that how are you gonna pay for all of these things? When does it end? I mean, you just put up some huge apartment complex off of Route 1 over by Burger King. There's that complex that just went up. This
Frank is pond is
That traffic
Mr. Chairman,
has-
this is way, this is way off topic.
Okay, we're done.
We're wasting time.
Why is it off topic?
It's a collective
Because
thing.
we don't have any say,
We're
or
dealing
any
with this
decision-making. We don't have any input into what the tax rate is, or what the town
Which is
spends it
fine,
on.
but
We
if
don't
you-
have any input to it, and that's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
I know,
We
but
have
that's
an
not what I'm,
agenda.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the tax override. What I'm saying is,
Well, that's what you
when does, excuse me?
That's what you asked about. the
No, it
override.
isn't. I did not ask about it. I said, when does it end? When does it take, when do the
We
people
can't
that
answer
already
that
live in
question.
Saugus get into consideration for not building these conglomerate apartment complexes? When does that happen?
That's, we can't answer that question.
And we got the
don't
cow
own these
womb, you know.
properties.
So you
Let's get
have,
back
you
to
have the ability to halt it.
Yes.
Is what I- is it-
Let's get back to the project.
That's what we're here for.
That's what
So
my
listen,
question is.
I'm
That's
trying to
my-
answer your question. Anybody who owns a piece of land in Saugus can come to this board and say, I want a variance, I want a special permit for some project. We are by law bound to listen to them in a public hearing like this.
Yeah.
The folks who have, the applicant is part of the public. They have the legal right to be heard, just like you do. Now, they're getting interrupted 100 times. We can't hear a complete sentence from them. And we're trying to do what all of you folks are asking us to do, is to put two and two together and listen to what they're saying and try to understand what the impact is on the neighborhood and on the town at large. We're trying very hard to do that. It's really hard to do it when they can't get 3 words out without 100 interruptions. We'll stay here all night. This is, what, meeting number 5 or 6 on this already. We're not limited by time. The chairman, Mr. Travis, will take on any question. We're not trying to cut anybody off. But if the applicant can't get their presentation out, then how can we do what you're asking us to do and make an intelligent decision?
Okay, so that was my question. Thank you for your answer.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mark Kornitsky, I'm the attorney for the hotel. And I sent a letter in late April regarding my interpretation of the shared parking analysis. And I think there's a flaw. I also CC'd it to the peer reviewer. I emailed him today. He has not yet had a chance to digest it and look at what the applicant's response to it. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that there's a substantive issue that the hotel takes with the parking analysis.
And we're aware of that, and
That's what
and the board would make any condition that adequate parking be shown for this project.
Well, that's what I
Your
think.
issue is dealt with and handled.
Yeah,
We don't really want to, it's a pending legal action, and as a board, we're not qualified to get into it.
I would just ask that peer review take a look at the issue.
Absolutely.
I'm sure in his next comments,
Absolutely.
he'll either agree with me or disagree with me.
I agree with you, but it's not, we're laymen who aren't capable of getting in the middle of that lawsuit, if you want to call it.
Well, we don't have a lawsuit.
All right, a legal action, or whatever it is.
Well, not even legal action, I'm just raising
All
the
right.
issue right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Sweet, do you want to comment to that, or did I say enough to just to leave it to?
Sure. Our attorney has responded to the letter from your office. We're very confident and comfortable in our parking numbers, and we, leave it up to the board and their peer reviewers to weigh in on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yes,
So obviously there was some modifications done to the property around because of people's questions with walls and whatnot. Where and when will there be modifications to the height of the building, the number of units, anything in that scope?
I don't think we're looking at, they propose any modifications to the.
Like you want an all or nothing?
The number of units.
The number of, I think, bedrooms may have changed because we did some changes a little bit early on to deal with the setback issue. So that number has gone down, but at this point in time, we are not contemplating any other changes to the building. Our architect, Jay, has responded to your peer review comments from Cliff Bomer, and we've given him this presentation. And we understand that architecture is also going to be taken up again at the next meeting.
Cliff was the peer review, right?
The town's peer reviewer,
Yeah.
yeah. So he has the response that Jay has written to his peer review, so we're waiting, there's a back and forth every
Yep.
time. We submit, he reviews, we respond, and we're waiting for his comments back on that, but we also did provide him with the site sections that we provided here today, and that, I believe, if it is still the will of the chair, is going to be discussed at the next meeting.
Okay.
I have a question for the chair. How did it change on bedrooms? Instead of 3, it's 2, instead of 2, it's 1? She said it was a change.
They're lessening the number of bedrooms.
Yeah, so that,
Jay will know this better.
there was a change from one stack of apartments from 2 bedrooms to 1 bedrooms. So there were, I believe, 5 2-bedroom apartments that are now 1-bedroom apartments.
And why was that?
It was to deal with the setback issue, so we reduced the size of the building slightly to address that.
Okay, is there anything else from the audience? Anybody else have any comments?
See you next month.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, Mr.
just wanted to remind you that your peer review consultant, Bill Cordero, is in attendance tonight, so if you'd like a presentation from him.
Okay. Mr. Cordero?
Mr. Chairman,
You feel like I bumped the
I was staying under the radar.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
No one will be us.
I was trying to fly low here, given everything that has flown around. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, we did do the civil engineering peer review and provided a couple of comment letters. I'm happy to discuss matters at the discretion of the board. I think I'll just give sort of a summary comment. Mr. Reardon gave a great summary in terms of where we are at with things, which is upon our first review, we did provide a very lengthy comment letter. He has provided a number of those responses where he has made changes to the plans to address a lot of technical infrastructure matters related to the site. We do still have some issues outstanding. He issued an updated letter just a couple of days ago. We've read it preliminarily, but we haven't responded to it. Very similarly to what Ms. Sweet just described with Cliff Bomer, we issue a letter, they issue a letter, we issue a letter, eventually we're going to dwindle down to everything is set, and we will turn over to this board saying we have been technically satisfied on matters that you have asked us to review. So that is still ongoing. What I'll make mention to the board in our latest review that Tetra Tech responded to is the plans provided, I guess I can't stress this enough, are per statute preliminary plans. Their job is to provide information that conveys to this board, to the town as much as possible, that the plan is suited for the site and that the technical challenges and complexities can be addressed, and that they will be bound by a decision of this board, if you choose to issue one, to address those comments and provide you fully detailed plans which incorporate a lot of matters. Full architectural design, full mechanical design, the blasting plan that was talked about earlier this evening, whomever they choose to engage, whether it's main drilling and blasting, as Tetra Tech had pointed out, is bound by the statutes, the regulations to provide necessary pre-blasting surveys, charge limitations, coordinate with the fire department, coordinate Mass DOT. There is a laundry list of additional things that these folks will have to go through that aren't quite ready yet here, and they can't discuss them in granular detail. My recommendation through our last letter, and Mr. Sharma, as your acting town council for this application, will likely support it. There's likely going to be a laundry list of conditions on this permit that will say to the applicant, to the builder, you need to do these things. You need to fully detail your buildings. You need to have agreements in place with the gas easement holder. They need to be technically satisfied that the earth removal, whether it's through blasting or through hammering or through other mechanical methods, is absolutely satisfactory to them for the safety of the gas easement, which is first and foremost because it's on site. And then I don't mean to secondarily address the public, the residents of Saugus, but it will also need to address them first. It will need to address them second. The gas easement is on site and they need to deal with that. The stormwater management issues, which we certainly focus on, they have provided design intent. We have agreed with their design intent. They have fundamental philosophies that they need to meet per Mass DEP stormwater standards, that they can't release more water off-site than is currently discharging today, making it worse for you folks as direct abutters, making it worse for the flooding that occurs on Route 1 that the chair had pointed out.
And we're in a flood zone. Go ahead.
So they're bound by that. We have technically agreed with them in their approach. Tetra Tech also pointed out that the regulations that they need to design against are, quite frankly, outdated. Mass DEP has acknowledged that they're outdated. We referenced this in our letter for the board. Mass DEP is actively pursuing new changes that will bring them into more current compliance with climate change standards, which is increased rainfalls, higher intensity, higher frequency. They are not bound by those regulations, quite frankly. We asked them in our review letters to assess those. It's important information. Things are changing on a daily basis. We've asked them to assess that. They have done that. And in terms of technical qualifications, their design would meet those standards 99%. They need to tweak it a little bit, which I'm confident as a professional engineer they could do. They will meet those standards. So while I'm happy to go through all of the comments we gave them, how they've addressed it, what still is outstanding, I just want the board to know that my summary letters are really going to recommend the board consider a bunch of conditions should this board issue a permit approving this project, things that they will have to continually address before this project is buildable, before it's construction ready. There's still a long road to go from here to there, even after the issuance of the permit here. Sean is correct in that my firm stood in front of this board not too long ago with a similar project where Sean acted in my role, so we've sort of flip-flopped back and forth. It doesn't lessen our ability to critique either project, and we believe the critiquing process makes the projects better, and that they need to continue and work towards that.
Thank you.
So I'm here if you do have questions, I'm happy to answer them. As much as I don't want to say it, if the public has questions of me that I can answer because I am representing the town in their interest, I'm happy to answer those as well, as long as everybody's kind.
So as these changes are taking place by the state, right, you feel that they're gonna meet those, correct?
I feel, through the chair to answer, I feel...
Oh, through the chair, okay.
I feel that they can meet them. The project, it's a good application, it's technically sound, despite we issued a 90 some odd comments. That's not uncommon to have that level of detail. It is technically sound. They have made changes. Where they still have not quite made it, I am confident that they could make those standards. They could meet those standards.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Your next one.
Yeah,
Hold on one second.
Yep.
Mr. Federico.
So in regards to the retention ponds, could you just elaborate from my knowledge? So say there's 100 linear foot of frontage on Forest Street, and you have, say, 50 gallons a minute escaping towards Forest Street in the condition that the site's in now. Now you have that 50 gallons escaping through maybe like an 8-inch culvert in one centralized location. How is that controlled so it's not going into the backyard of another individual?
So that's an excellent question. And you know, as engineers, we don't always get in the weeds on technical questions like that. So to restate it, to make sure we all understand it together, they're taking a site that has woodland areas where water that falls from the sky, as Tetra Tech pointed out, there's a lot of rock underneath. It's not going into the ground, it's running off the ground. But it's running off the ground over a wider area. They need to collect it. It goes into a stormwater basin. They need to treat it. They need to meet all sorts of standards. It needs to come out of the basin. To this gentleman's point, it's in a much more concentrated fashion. We raised that exact same issue during our first review because we can't take water. The numbers can be funny. 50 gallons a minute over 100 feet is different than 50 gallons a minute over 5 feet. You know, it's a garden hose versus a fire hose. So we did highlight that during our first review, and we asked them to address it and make changes to their stormwater basin, specifically the outlet. Mr. Reardon pointed out there's an outlet control structure. That's the stopper to your bathtub. You don't just dump the bathtub out. You pull the stopper and it goes through the drain. That's
Is it
the
a
outlet
valve?
control.
Is it a pressure release valve, or what is it?
So I'm not speaking for their design, but traditionally it is
Yeah.
not a pressure release valve. They are oriented by gravity. As the water fills up the bathtub, when it reaches a certain point, it leaves. Is that?
Yeah, you size the openings to control how much water is let out as the water rises up. So if you have an 8-inch opening and the water rises up, it lets out more water than a 4-inch opening would.
And you're saying the ground is going to absorb this and it's not going to affect the water table?
No.
Oh, what did you say?
No. Through the chair. That's a different issue.
Oh, I didn't go through the chair.
So one of the requirements we have to do is to make sure that our projects don't negatively impact groundwater. In this particular application, it's pretty much a non-issue because of the way our land is mostly rock. If we were down the Cape, for example, and we had people that
marsh
had,
and all, yeah.
and people that had wells nearby, we wouldn't want to rob all the water out of the groundwater table because we'd be robbing the water from their wells.
Correct.
Not so much an issue here. We have very little opportunity to recharge groundwater.
Even though you're going to blast? it won't affect the rock that's there that's gonna absorb the water?
The rock doesn't absorb water. It runs,
Well, you have ledge.
correct.
Saugus is water and ledge, right?
Yeah, a little
Basically.
topsoil here and there, yeah.
So how did, so you're gonna release this water, and you're saying the ground can absorb it?
No, I'm saying just the opposite.
Yeah.
So the ground cannot absorb it.
So where does this water go?
The water runs off the site and leaves the site. So it runs on the side of the site where the anglers, or runs down the anglers to the angler property. On the front of the site, it runs out to Route 1,
And the anglers were concerned about that.
right? And we've designed a stormwater management system to treat the water as required.
And they're happy,
Who's that?
the anglers?
I can't speak for the anglers.
I hope they're not.
So my follow-up question.
So just
Depends how the Celtics are doing.
to circle it back to this gentleman's question, so to Sean's point, the water's not going into the ground, it's going into a basin. It's going through their outlet control structure, through those orifices that he described. It's more concentrated. So as that water wants to leave, it's more concentrated. So they revised their plans during one of our comments to say, we need you to take that water, which is now concentrated, and spread it back out. So it's not concentrating itself as it's discharging to, whether it's towards the Anglers Association land, towards Route 1, the discharge from the basin that's in the, I guess it's the northwesterly corner of the site towards the adjacent properties. So they've added what are called level spreaders. It takes the water from this and it spreads it level and releases it, so you're not
It's not a
stirring.
perforated pipe.
It is not a perforated pipe.
So a follow-up question would be, based on your technical analysis of their plans, it's not gonna negatively impact forestry in any way?
So we never speak in the,
Never.
definitive
Right,
statement.
yeah, we
Right,
never
we have
say-
to be careful
never
of
say
that.
never.
The design standards that they would have to meet, that any professional engineer on any project would have to meet, they have met them.
Okay.
And if I could add,
Thank you.
so right now, along that whole Forest Street edge, we have water that runs off of our site into the rear of the properties along Forest Street. Because the grade over a lot of our site is much higher than Forest Street. The walls that we're building in the drainage infrastructure that we're building is collecting all that water that used to run off onto those parcels and bringing it down to the pond. The discharge that Phil described, the level spreader, is on the property that belongs to the applicant. So we took water that used to go off onto the other properties, brought it down to the bottom, and then distributed it in a gradual way, but on the property of the parcel.
Okay.
So we basically effectively taking water that used to run off across their property and brought it and put it across the applicant.
So in theory, it could actually improve their water issue? Or-
Not really.
It reduces how much runoff leaves our site and crosses their property.
Very well, thank you.
Mr. Long, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question. This all started, the hearing started in January. What's the date that you have to make a decision by? And obviously, there's a lot of work to be done yet. When would you be asking for an extension?
Well,
I
the
like it.
usual time period allotted is 6 months. I think the petitioner can go more along, can probably expound, the attorney can expound on the timeline. At the same time, we want to get it done within that time period, but if we can't, extensions can be requested and granted.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so my recollection is that the deadline to close the hearing is July 16th. Unfortunately, I left my phone in my car, so I can't double check that, but I believe that is correct. The applicant does have the ability to grant extensions if it so chooses. If the applicant is not willing to grant an extension, then the board has to close the public hearing by that date. And that's something, ultimately, it's too early in the process to be talking about granting extensions. Once we get towards the very end, we can certainly take a look and make a determination as to whether we think all of the information we need to provide has been submitted to the board. If it has, then we're unlikely to grant an extension. If there is additional information that we think does still need to be reviewed, then we would be likely to grant an extension. It's really a sort of a last-minute call. So that's how we would
My
handle
thinking
that.
is, by the conclusion of the next meeting at the end of this month, we'll have a better idea on time frame or what else needs to be done. We'll know more on that, Mr. Long. You asked the
I'm
question?
sorry. He said, they'll know more later on.
You asked the question.
By the next meeting.
Pay attention.
After the next meeting.
On
I think by the next meeting,
June,
no, there's one more meeting in this month of May. And by the conclusion of that meeting, we'll know better our schedule, whether or not we'll be able to hit that July 16th date, or we'll try to negotiate a date for its conclusion.
but the petitioner can give you an extension now, and you can still decide at some point.
But I don't think he would, why would he do it now when we're still like
Well,
gonna
you
present
seem
it?
to have a lot of work that has to be done.
Well, let's get to the next, let's conclude on this meeting, and then the one at the end of the month, and then we'll really have a much better idea of what's
This
left.
is on your agenda for the end of the month?
Yes, it's the,
27th, I think.
is it
No,
Thursday? Thursday, the 29th, we're meeting again.
So this will be on that agenda.
Thursday, the 29th, we're meeting on, that's on a regular Board of Appeal
Will it be
meeting.
here?
Wait a minute, what
I
day?
believe Stephanie was meeting at Town Hall.
That's a Thursday?
Yes.
Don't we have- I think I have a planning board meeting that night.
It's just before Memorial Day.
The last Thursday of the month, you usually don't.
I think we're having a special hearing on the article regarding the marijuana.
We're
Schedule a
told,
meeting and don't tell us.
we're told to work around your meeting schedules, and then the planning board schedules a meeting for that night, an unscheduled meeting, and we're supposed to abide by that, Bob? That's pretty tough.
I didn't ask you to do that.
I said, that's tough on our
I
part.
didn't ask you, I
I
suggested.
mean, we've been requested by,
And being a representative from that area,
I know, I
as you
understand.
are, from your area,
I understand,
and having been to these meetings ever since January,
I
I
understand.
think that, you know, I'd like to know, rather than just have time blow this thing away.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I'm
agree with him.
Of course you do. But, I mean, how are we to, I mean, the planning board called, we do our best. I was requested we're meeting here on a Wednesday to accommodate the planning board. We're meeting on a different date to accommodate the planning board. Attorney Schomer serves as counsel on the planning board too. We try to keep him available to that. Now, the planning board calls a special meeting on an odd night that we already have a meeting scheduled, and it's as if we did something wrong.
Can you do two in one night?
All right, we start at the roof.
No.
Is that a
Our
question,
meeting's,
Tom?
Oh, yeah,
our
that's
meeting's
right,
scheduled.
yeah.
Our meeting's scheduled, who shows. If they want to call a special meeting on the night of our meeting, maybe they should have told us, is all I have to
Well, we
say.
have a dilemma.
The 29th was scheduled 6 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
No, it was scheduled that long.
And Mr. Chairman, with regard to the timeline, I can only speak for myself, but I got most of, well, not most, everything that was presented today at lunchtime. I haven't read it yet. What I'm seeing here, breaking my neck to read, is the first time and only time I've seen it before. If we want to facilitate this thing, we need a few days. Can we make an effort to send this before lunchtime, the day of the meeting?
Yeah,
Stephanie can do that.
yeah, but can you give us sort of a date that we should be shooting for?
Something more than 7 hours.
Sure. That is absolutely fair.
This is your job, it's not our job.
Understood.
We need a little.
Stephanie can try to get
eliminate the
that.
project.
Stephanie,
Can we do that?
they have been sending it overtime on. I'll take
They sent
Paul.
it, no, they sent it yesterday, we got
They went in.
it today.
But still, Stephanie and I should have been
Let me, Mr. Chairman, let me respond to that. So, we submitted complete plan sets for the architecture and the civil with our peer review responses. That was done weeks ago. Basically, everything that was presented today, the site plan and the landscaping plans, you've already seen. The only thing that was new tonight was the perspectives that Jay was working on, and there is just a tremendous amount of research to try and get, you know, those kinds of views. We would be very happy, since next meeting is gonna be architecture, to bring them, you know, to bring them up again, if you wanna go through, you know, through them again. But as soon as they're ready with our team, I do send them on to Stephanie. Unfortunately, I am dealing with some family stuff. I didn't get it out until late last night, so I'm gonna take, you know, full responsibility for not getting it out. At the moment, we do not have the responses for architecture or for traffic, and we are 2 weeks out from the meeting, so our ability to respond to those second peer reviews in a timely manner and get documentation to you is you know, dependent on that, and I don't know if there is any further information as to when we're gonna get, you know, those back. I don't know if your attorney might know what, you know, what the status of those are gonna be. Cliff could have been waiting for, you know, the sections that we were providing tonight, but the traffic information was submitted quite some time ago.
I appreciate that, but the timeline is what it is. And this is sort of rolling downhill to us. And, you know, a few months from now, the public is not going to remember that your research is hard, or that there was a conflict with the town. They're going to remember the people sitting here who said, made some decision. You know, everyone else gets to go away, but we still sit here and have to take responsibility for decision and a timeline. So have to push back, and
As I said, we're happy to do it again next time.
if we're going to have to follow a timeline, and I'm forced to make a decision on July 16th without complete information, I can already tell you what my decision is.
Good.
Just to clarify, you're not required to make a decision on July 16th. As of right now, that's the date when the board is obligated to close the public hearing. Once the board closes the public hearing, it has 40 days to deliberate on the application before it has to render its decision. So you don't have to make a decision the night that you close the public hearing. Mr. Riley, I perfectly understand your concern, and I agree with it, and we will certainly do our best to get you information at least 48 hours and hopefully a week ahead. But again, it is somewhat dependent on when we get information that we need to respond to. But we will do our best to get information to you as soon as possible before each hearing.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. O'Leary.
Okay. First of all, the chairman and I have both sat on 40B hearings before. This is my 5th or 6th 40B.
Isn't it disgusting?
You have to understand that the people who own land, just like all of you, have certain rights, okay? The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has said that there is a shortage of housing in the state of approximately 200,000 units. That's why they're changing a lot of the rules on things like accessory dwelling units and other issues. We could take a vote right now and say, no, this is not going to be allowed. If we did that, they can go to the housing, they can go to the state.
Yeah, it's sister, we get it.
And get it approved, okay? We have the ability to put conditions on them. And those conditions, in the past, when we've done it, it's been up to 25 or 30 conditions that we can say, this is what you have to do. And they, if they want it done, will agree to those conditions, okay? That's our leverage. Their leverage is, if we just say no,
They go to the state.
they go to the state and they get it.
And then there's no conditions.
And there's no conditions. So they can do whatever they would
That's
like.
pretty sad, isn't it? In all
Well-
reality, it's pretty sad.
Well-
It is pretty sad, but I understand.
Okay. The
I don't
point,
want to understand, but I do.
the point is, and we've seen this because we have people coming in before this board all the time who say things like, gee, we want our kids to move in with us, or the kids say, we want our parents to move in because there's no place for them to live in town.
You know, we're shipping a lot of people out of here. I don't know who's gonna rent one.
Because they don't have places to go.
No,
So
no,
that's
they're
why
going
these
back.
kind of,
Let 'em
please,
finish.
let me finish. Okay, I was quiet while you were talking, repeatedly. Okay?
I'm good
Okay.
at that.
Yes, okay. I don't like people to overtalk me when I talk. Okay, that's why I tend to be quiet most of the time, because I like to listen. I've heard an expression that says, don't open your mouth because then people will see how stupid you are. Okay? Okay. These projects, there's a course of action. And in all of the projects that I've been involved with, I have yet to see a neighborhood say, gee, we really want this in our neighborhood. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Okay, everyone would like to have a forest, have break art in your backyard. Everyone would love that. But that's not a real life scenario. It's, as Tom, the chair, mentioned, these projects fund things in town that we all benefit from. Whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's public safety, playgrounds, whatever it may be, those all cost money. To run the town costs money. This project adds money to the town,
I understand.
okay? I'm not speaking just to you,
No,
I'm
I
speaking to
understand.
everyone. These projects are not easy on this board. We put a lot of time, and you do too, you attend these meetings, but we do more than just attend these meetings. This is what we got just for tonight's meeting, and this isn't all of it. This book is what we got prior to this, okay? So every meeting, we get 50, 100 pages. We sit here,
200 to 300 pages sometimes.
whatever the number is, but we sit here, we listen to this, we have to come up with a series of conditions, and we have attorneys who help us do it, Jesse, for example, okay, and other attorneys, they have peer review. Peer review means that the town has hired people to criticize, or not criticize, but to
I
comment,
like that word.
to comment on what they present, okay? They pay for that person, okay, but they don't control that person, the town does. So, that our peer reviewer, that's his job. His job is to say, okay, this is good, this isn't good, and they pay him to say that this should be changed. So there are checks and balances, but there's a limitation on the checks and balances. You have to understand that members of the board are not engineers. We're not construction, well, one of us is a construction person, okay? I'm an attorney, so I know some of the legal issues, but this isn't my area. You know, someone like Jesse, it's his area. He specializes. But the point is, we're trying to do the best that we can here. We understand that you people aren't happy with this and you would like to see it all go away. But Mr. Palumbo owns property, he has certain rights too. And we're trying to balance those. So that's where we're going. We're listening to your comments. We're all giving up our Thursday evening, or whatever evening it happens to be here. I've never seen one of these done in 6 months. Out of the ones that I sat on so far, they've never finished within a 6-month period, okay? So, expecting it to be over by July 16th, I don't think is realistic. As I said, if we don't get to a point where we can say, okay, we'll extend you, then we have to vote. If we vote and it's a negative vote, then they have options. So, just
May
be
I
aware.
ask a question, Mr. Rosetti? Do I have to say I go
Through
through
the
the
chair.
chair? Can I go through the chair to Mr. Rosetti?
Yes.
In other words, what you're saying is, if you don't pass it, they go to the state and it gets passed, and it doesn't have as many rules and regulations as if you were involved. So can you cut the height
Can we cut the height?
Yeah, the height, the height.
The
Looks like
height of the
onto 'em.
buildings?
Huh? Yeah, can you make them, can you say it's too high, you know, and you must cut the height, or they can say no?
Can,
Yeah.
the gentleman in the back has had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, so if you give them one condition, or you give them so many conditions that they become unhappy with the conditions, do they have the right to say, forget it, we're just gonna go to the state?
If we say no? because
No, no,
we-
you don't say no, you say, fine,
Right, we
I'm all
put so
for
many
it, but you
we
have
put
to
in-
do this, this, and this, and they say, we're not doing that.
We put ludicrous conditions, 150 conditions that there's no way they're gonna meet.
Right,
Do they have a right to go to the state and
correct,
challenge
yes,
those?
right.
Yes, they do.
They do.
You can ask our
So
attorney.
you can put all the conditions you
I
want,
mean, yes,
and they don't have to pay for any of them, they can just say, they don't.
oh, they're paying, their attorney gets paid.
No, but they don't have to do any of the conditions, they don't have to.
Like when that happens.
They don't have to run through the Saugus hoops, they can
Yeah.
just go to the, they can just turn around and go to the state. So I
Mr.
guess,
Chairman,
why aren't they doing that now?
The attorney
many
can.
Yeah, okay.
To address that comment, so the board, when issuing its decision, has three options. You can issue an approval, which never happens. I have literally never once seen an application just approved without any conditions. You can issue an approval with conditions, or you can deny the project. Obviously, the applicant has the right to appeal a denial to the Housing Appeals Committee. The applicant also has the right to appeal an approval with conditions that it believes renders the project uneconomic to the Housing Appeals Committee. So we would still have the right to go to the Housing Appeals Committee. You cannot go there directly. You have to go through this process first and get a decision from the board before you're
That's what I
allowed to take an
assumed,
appeal.
yeah. That's right, we're here.
Okay, and our attorney is right there. He can either confirm or deny what's been said. You know, if you want further, I mean, he's on the opposite side, so,
I understand.
So it's a.
I say hand up.
Me? Yeah, so Peter, I totally can understand the perspective of what you're talking about. I think what I've heard from all these meetings that I've attended, which I think I've been here for all of them, I think a lot of it's scale and how aggressive. So I know from experience when I put my garage on right before COVID, I went to my neighbors because I was required to, and out of respect, I go to the neighbors and say, is this too close? Is this too high? I got the plan, I did the process. Came to the board, they said it's too long, it's a little too high, we revamped because they didn't want an in-law, which I didn't either. And anyway, it all came together. But I had some boundaries, obviously, that I had to work in because I had to respect the neighborhood, made sense, respect the aesthetic of everything around it. And then obviously I also had to then manage with the environmental because I had compensatory storage that I had to manage for water because I also put a pool in at one point, so then that shifted the ground, water and all those things. So I went through all of that in a very small scale comparatively. But what I'm hearing a lot of the neighbors saying is, just like Cliff said last meeting, when he went through his opinion of all of this, it's like we're trying to put like 200 pounds of feathers in like a 5-pound bag. Like the size of the property isn't really very big. What you want to put on the property is very large comparatively to the neighborhood. It's complex. It's got, I mean, all the variables we already know, right? Like the water, the environment, the traffic, the noise, the school, the buses, the fire, the ins and outs. Like it's just a massive undertaking for that particular plot of land. I think if you were going to come to us and say, hey, we're making some townhouses and we're going to closer to Route 1 with green space in the back and like environment for families and whatever, I think it would feel like it fits with the neighborhood versus the places that are being bigger, like Kowloon's is thinking about doing, like the old dinosaur one, like they're a little bit further up. Prankers we looked at, that wasn't really close to any neighborhoods comparatively, like the buffer was a lot further out. So I think that's really where everyone's coming from and why we're getting so fired up, because it's like, it feels like you're right on top of me. Like, Jesus, stop breathing on me at night. When I roll over my sleep, there's somebody looking at me through the window. Like, it's close, you know? So that's what I guess we want to hear, that you're not like, oh, I brought you back like 10 feet of wall and 3 feet of this and shifted it. Like, we don't want the height. We don't want the blasting. We want the disruption. We don't want all the things that are going to ruin physically or emotionally to the environment that we live in collectively. So that, I guess, is what we're hoping to find, that the presenters are gracious enough to hear us and modify and work with us creatively to figure out how not to waste the property, right? You don't want to just have dead property if you own it, but you want to do it smart, and you want to respect your neighbors, as we all are trying to do. So, that's what I heard.
That's what the whole process is all about.
Yeah,
You know, we come up, or they make a presentation, we come back with certain conditions. They have certain rights, the
Yeah.
town has certain rights, but,
I just hope that they're hearing to the level in which, because I know they want it to be a large scale for profit, makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess we're just really hoping that you're hearing us when we say, this is pretty big, it's tall, it's aggressive, it's gonna blow up literally the ground next to where we're living. It
Yep.
could damage a lot, who's paying? So it shouldn't be taken lightly, all of these concerns, because we keep showing up and I got a lot of better things to be doing.
yeah,
As all of you.
again, the other 40B projects, as I said, I don't recall ever having anyone who said, yeah, put this in my backyard.
Yeah. But
Okay?
backyard, it seems tighter here compared to some of the other ones. I don't know for sure, but that's my.
No, I don't
yeah,
think
it is.
so. I think some of the other ones were considerably
I think
fewer
Hilltop-
units, but
I think Hilltop
tighter.
is a more,
Yeah,
hillside.
that's close.
Hilltop is
But lower.
shorter.
It's not over their head.
I've talked to you, I guess.
Yeah.
Spread out, you're gonna need a pond, guy, it's spread
You're
out.
not gonna have people looking
Be at
down
my
into
house
the
at 6
yard.
o'clock.
Yeah, but you're gonna have people
Every day
walking
it's
from
time to check.
Hilltop right onto Forestry,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna have that here.
I have one question, I don't mean to be disrespectful at all, I'm just curious, because I don't know how it all works. If it wasn't a 40B, would we be going through this whole process, or would someone have been able to say,
Absolutely
no,
not.
it's too big for this lot of land?
If it wasn't a 40B, no, this would not meet town requirements.
Which is very sad that there's
Okay,
no
but
other
a
way to.
40B
Yeah, I
is
know.
a particular animal that the state created.
Many,
to
many
solve-
years ago, and we never catch up and we never get there, and
Correct.
honestly,
Saugus Common is
I
a
don't think we
40B.
ever will.
No,
So I think
after this,
we'll be,
we've met the quota,
No, we're
right?
not, no, because more people will move into
Right.
town, there'll be more
After
apartments.
this project, we should be over the 10%.
Yeah, we should, but
And now when
Unless
the
it
other
changes.
people wanna
Yeah,
build,
it's
does
never
it still
gonna
go
happen.
through the board?
The number can change as other projects come on.
the numbers
So-
will
so-
change,
So
Patty.
other projects come along, they can do a
If they're
40B and it goes.
40B.
Yes.
So this doesn't just stop? After
No.
this, we've met the 10%, or whatever it is?
It all goes by your population and all that.
No,
You're getting off the subject,
You're not trying.
just so that you know, the state is considering changing the 40B rules and possibly expanding the percentage
Okay, I'm
or
going.
counting different things. There's a lot of different issues.
Thank you.
But as of right now, I believe with this project, we would meet our quota
Until the state or something changes.
until
Unless
something
the state
changes.
changes some way, which the formula.
Because
For the next
honestly,
project,
how
right?
many years has it been since 40B started?
Saugus Commons down the street on Main
55
Street was a
55,
40B.
yeah, wow.
Okay, I didn't sit on that one.
All right, let's get back to this. I think I see,
That's okay. So it's on a percentage 40B, so you're saying after this, it's gonna meet it, but when they build another apartment building, will that, now you'll be under for 40B, so the more 40B can be built?
Yeah.
Basically, is it the percentage of
Total housing.
residences?
we go over our 10% number,
Yeah,
the town then has more control, they can't circumvent zone, they're gonna have to pay the Saugus Town zone. They can't circumvent zoning like they can with the 40B project.
So, Mr. Chairman, the
55 years,
10%
it
number,
takes that long.
yeah, the 10% number is based upon your total year-round housing units.
Yes, so
That is
realistically, we're
only
never catching
changed
it.
after every decennial census. So any units that have been created since the 2020 census have not yet hit your count. So your total year-round housing units will eventually be higher. And I don't know how close you are to the 10%, but
I think this project should put us closer to 11 if I'm right.
so theoretically, you could have created enough additional units to have you drop back under the 10%. even after approving this project, but I don't know for sure on that question. But that's how the subsidized housing inventory works, is that the year-round housing units are only adjusted every 10 years.
Mr. Shulman?
He's right, the census result, when the census results come out, that's when the total number of units is reflected in the updated inventory. So currently, your total year-round housing count is based on 2020 numbers. The number of affordable housing units, that's updated every couple of years. When the new SHI subsidized housing inventory comes out, you'll be somewhere close to 10%, but not above it. This project will put you well over it and most likely keep you over it when the 2030 census.
We're not close. And I have heard things right now, on this project, right now, it's 25%, I believe it's towards 80% of area median income. You count all the units in the project?
That's correct, because it's a rental project.
I'm hearing that may change, and they might only just count the number of units, and then that number might drop down to 80.
I have heard proposals for that, I don't think it's likely.
Okay.
I don't think that there's any political will in the state to change that law.
Okay.
I agree with that. It's been a proposal by the governor's commission that will be phased out over a period of time. But it would, 40B is sort of known as a third rail in legislative politics. The developer wants. There's not a lot of room to change things like that.
Do I have anything else from the board right now? Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak or make any comments?
You being good?
I would like to announce Saugus are ahead 89 to 76.
All right, you're trying to make money points.
I sure am.
Just saying, if we close, you guys could probably get home before it's over.
Why they've been playing, that's still lead. Yes, Mr. Brad.
29th included in traffic, is there anything else on that?
Traffic and everything.
29. Yes, what's
We were supposed to do traffic tonight.
What's the schedule for the 29th?
The traffic and architecture, and we would like to update our waiver list for you, but we're really waiting until we get all of
What do you
the,
mean by the waiver list?
So you read at the beginning from a list of the waivers that have been requested,
I got you.
but, as is typical in a 40B hearing process, adjustments are made to the plans throughout the process. Some waivers fall off, some waivers may need to be added. So we will submit a revised waiver list.
Make sure you go out this.
yeah, we're just waiting for the final, next set of peer review comments before we do that, so. And we can take that up at another meeting.
So we need a motion to consider this hearing. 29th. Is that seconded? I guess the other thing is a motion to close and then meeting will be 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Hello? Next meeting is 7 o'clock on the 29th, and it's in the town hall auditorium.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for all being so.